The inorganic composition of bone mineral, is primarily formed from salts of calcium and phosphate, the major salt being hydroxyapatite, Ca10, PO4, 6, O2. The exact composition of the matrix may be subject to change over time due to nutrition and biomineralization, with the ratio of calcium to phosphate varying between 1.3 and 2.0 per weight, and trace minerals such as magnesium, sodium, potassium, and carbonate also being found. Type I collagen composes 90–95% of the organic matrix, with remainder of the matrix being a homogeneous liquid called ground substance consisting of proteoglycans such as hyaluronic acid and chondroitin sulfate, as well as non-collagenous proteins such as osteocalcin, osteopontin, or bone sialoprotein. Collagen consists of strands of repeating units, which give bone tensile strength, and are arranged in an overlapping fashion that prevents shear stress. The function of ground substance is not fully known. Two types of bone can be identified microscopically according to the arrangement of collagen, woven and lamellar. Woven bone, also known as fibrous bone, which is characterized by a haphazard organization of collagen fibers and is mechanically weak. Lamellar bone, which has a regular parallel alignment of collagen into sheets, lamellae, and is mechanically strong. Woven bone is produced when osteoblasts produce osteoid rapidly, which occurs initially in all fetal bones, but is later replaced by more resilient lamellar bone. In adults, woven bone is created after fractures or in Paget's disease. Woven bone is weaker, with a smaller number of randomly oriented collagen fibers, but forms quickly. It is for this appearance of the fibrous matrix that the bone is termed woven. It is soon replaced by lamellar bone, which is highly organized in concentric sheets with a much lower proportion of osteocytes to surrounding tissue. Lamellar bone, which makes its first appearance in humans in the fetus during the third trimester, is stronger and filled with many collagen fibers parallel to other fibers in the same layer. These parallel columns are called osteons. In cross-section, the fibers run in opposite directions in alternating layers, much like in plywood, assisting in the bone's ability to resist torsion forces. After a fracture, woven bone forms initially and is gradually replaced by lamellar bone during a process known as bony substitution. Compared to woven bone, lamellar bone formation takes place more slowly. The orderly deposition of collagen fibers restricts the formation of osteoid to about 1 to 2 m per day. Lamellar bone also requires a relatively flat surface to lay the collagen fibers in parallel or concentric layers. Citation needed. The extracellular matrix of bone is laid down by osteoblasts, which secrete both collagen and ground substance. These synthesize collagen within the cell, and then secrete collagen fibrils. The collagen fibers rapidly polymerase to form collagen strands. At this stage they are not yet mineralized, and are called osteoid. Around the strands calcium and phosphate precipitate on the surface of these strands, within days to weeks becoming crystals of hydroxyapatite. In order to mineralize the bone, the osteoblasts secrete vesicles containing alkaline phosphatase. This cleaves the phosphate groups and acts as the foci for calcium and phosphate deposition. The vesicles then rupture and act as a center for crystals to grow on. More particularly, bone mineral is formed from globular and plate structures. There are 5 types of bones in the human body: long, short, flat, irregular, and sesamoid. Long bones are characterized by a shaft, the diaphysis, that is much longer than its width, and by an epiphysis, a rounded head at each end of the shaft. They are made up mostly of compact bone, with lesser amounts of marrow, located within the medullary cavity, and areas of spongy, cancellous bone at the ends of the bones. Most bones of the limbs, including those of the fingers and toes, are long bones. The exceptions are the 8 carpal bones of the wrist, the 7 articulating tarsal bones of the ankle, and the sesamoid bone of the kneecap. Long bones such as the clavicle, that have a differently shaped shaft or ends are also called modified long bones. Short bones are roughly cube-shaped, and have only a thin layer of compact bone surrounding a spongy interior. The bones of the wrist and ankle are short bones. Flat bones are thin and generally curved, with 2 parallel layers of compact bones sandwiching a layer of spongy bone. Most of the bones of the skull are flat bones, as is the sternum. Sesamoid bones are bones embedded in tendons. Since they act to hold the tendon further away from the joint, the angle of the tendon is increased and thus the leverage of the muscle is increased. Examples of sesamoid bones are the patella and the pisiform. Irregular bones do not fit into the above categories. They consist of thin layers of compact bone surrounding a spongy interior. As implied by the name, their shapes are irregular and complicated. Often this irregular shape is due to their many centers of ossification or because they contain bony sinuses. The bones of the spine, pelvis, and some bones of the skull are irregular bones. Examples include the ethmoid and sphenoid bones. In the study of anatomy, anatomists use a number of anatomical terms to describe the appearance, shape, and function of bones. Other anatomical terms are also used to describe the location of bones. Like other anatomical terms, many of these derive from Latin and Greek. Some anatomists still use Latin to refer to bones. The term osseous, and the prefix osteo, referring to things related to bone, are still used commonly today. Some examples of terms used to describe bones include the term foramen to describe a hole through which something passes, and a canal or meatus to describe a tunnel-like structure. A protrusion from a bone can be called a number of terms, including a condyle, crest, spine, eminence, tubercle, or tuberosity, depending on the protrusion's shape and location. In general, long bones are said to have a head, neck, and body. When 2 bones join together, they are said to articulate. If the 2 bones have a fibrous connection and are relatively immobile, then the joint is called a suture.